God, please, don't let her survive. Let her die while giving birth. This is my escape from this stupid marriage.
He thought losing his wife would solve his problems, and tried to escape responsibility. So he prayed for his pregnant wife to die during labor, then all it took was one phone call he received that changed his life forever. Can a selfish prayer destroy everything a man once worked for? Find out what happens in this epic tale. The village of Umudara was quiet the night Amara went into labor. A restless wind moved through the palm trees, bending them as though they carried secrets too heavy to hold. The air felt thick, swollen with something unseen. Inside their modest but beautiful bungalow at the edge of town, Amara knelt beside her bed, one hand on her stomach, breathing through the tightening waves of pain. She did not scream. Amara had always been gentle even in suffering. Her skin glowed despite the sweat gathering on her forehead. Her wrapper was loose around her swollen belly, and her braids were tied back neatly, as if she still cared how she looked in the middle of labor. "Emeka," she whispered softly. Emeka stood near the window, pretending to look outside. His jaw was tight. His mind was elsewhere. Not on the woman who had stood beside him when his mechanic shop was nothing but a rented shed. Not on the nights she stayed up calculating expenses so they would not drown in debt. Not on the countless prayers she had whispered for his success. No. His thoughts were with Kyoma. Kyoma, with her bright red lipstick and sharp laughter. Kyoma, who said things Amara would never dare to say. Kyoma, who told him he deserved more than a village wife with village dreams. Emeka felt trapped. Amara's pregnancy had come at the wrong time, just when Kyoma was demanding he prove his love. Just when she was pressing him to leave his simple life behind. Another contraction hit Amara. She gripped the bed frame, her voice trembling but controlled. "Please, call the midwife." Emeka turned slowly. His face was unreadable. He stepped outside, but instead of dialing the midwife immediately, he stood under the dark sky. The wind whipped against his shirt. The clouds rumbled. And something dark began forming in his chest. "If she doesn't make it," he muttered under his breath. The thought shocked him, but he did not stop. "If she doesn't make it, I will finally be free." The wind howled louder. He closed his eyes and whispered a prayer he would later wish he had swallowed. "God, let this be my freedom." A sudden crack of thunder split the sky. Inside, Amara cried out, not in fear, but in strength. In the stubborn will to live. The storm raged. And somewhere between heaven and earth, a prayer changed direction. By the time the midwife arrived, the storm had soaked the red earth roads into thick mud. Lantern light flickered across the walls as the power cut out completely. Shadows jumped and stretched across the room like restless spirits. The house felt suspended between life and death. Amara's breathing had grown heavier. Sweat drenched her wrapper. Her fingers clawed into the mattress, but she did not curse. She did not complain. She prayed. "God, protect my children. Children." The word echoed strangely in the room. The midwife's eyes widened after her examination. "Emeka," she called urgently. "It is twins." For a split second, something twisted in Emeka's chest. Twins meant double responsibility, double ties, double anchors to the life he wanted to escape. Outside, the thunder cracked again, louder this time, as if the sky itself was reacting. Hours stretched like eternity. The storm pressed against the windows, rain beating the roof in a relentless rhythm. The midwife worked quickly, issuing firm instructions. Amara's strength began to flicker, but she forced herself to stay present. "I am here," she whispered to her unborn babies. "Mama is here." Emeka stood uselessly near the doorway, his heart racing for reasons he refused to name. A part of him felt fear not for Amara, but for himself. If she survived, the door he had quietly opened with Kyoma would slam shut forever. Another contraction tore through Amara's body. She screamed. A sound so raw and powerful that it silenced every selfish thought in the room. Then suddenly, a cry. Sharp. Tiny. Alive. The midwife lifted a small, wriggling baby into the lantern light. "One boy," she announced. Before relief could settle, another contraction surged. Amara gasped, exhausted beyond measure, yet determined. Moments later, a second cry pierced the storm. "They are strong boys," the midwife said, breathless but smiling. "Healthy. Both of them." The cries blended together, filling every corner of the house. They sounded like victory. Amara collapsed back against the pillow, tears streaming down her cheeks, tears of relief, gratitude, triumph. She reached weakly for her sons, her hands trembling as the midwife placed them on her chest. "Thank you," she whispered, eyes closed. Emeka stepped forward slowly. The lantern light flickered across the tiny faces wrapped in cloth. Their skin was warm and soft, their fists clenched tightly as though already fighting for their place in the world. They were fragile. Perfect. Alive. Something unfamiliar rose in his throat, not joy exactly, but something heavier. Responsibility. Permanence. Before the feeling could fully form, his phone vibrated sharply in his pocket. The sound felt violent in the quiet room. He stepped outside to answer, rain misting against his face as the storm began to weaken. It was a panicked voice. "Emeka, Kyoma had an accident. A truck hit her car on the express road. She is alive but, her legs, they say she may never walk again." The world tilted. For a moment, he heard nothing but ringing in his ears. The rain slowed. The thunder drifted away in the distance. "She survived?" he asked faintly. "Yes. But the doctors are not hopeful about her legs." The call ended. Emeka stood frozen under the dark sky. His prayer echoed back to him like a curse. "Let this be my freedom." He felt something cold crawl through his veins. The freedom he asked for had not touched Amara. It had touched Kyoma. The storm did not rage anymore. It had passed, calm and unsettling. He walked back inside slowly. Amara was smiling weakly at him, her face glowing with a tired but sacred happiness. The twins lay peacefully against her chest, their cries now soft whimpers. "Look at them," she whispered. "They look like you." He stared at her, at the woman who had just fought death and won. For the first time that night, fear truly gripped him. Not fear of responsibility. Not fear of fatherhood. But fear of the consequences of words spoken in darkness. And as the lantern flame steadied, Emeka understood something he had never considered before. Some prayers are heard immediately. But not in the way you expect. Weeks turned into months, but peace never returned to Emeka's heart. The twins grew quickly, Chibuzo louder, Chinedu quieter but observant. Their cries filled the house at odd hours, but instead of irritation, Emeka felt something else now, unease. Every time they cried, he remembered the night he had asked for their mother's death. Kyoma's accident haunted him. He visited her twice more before she was transferred to Abuja. Each visit felt heavier than the last. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and regret. She no longer looked like the vibrant woman who once laughed at Amara's simplicity. Her legs lay still under the blanket. Tubes ran along her arms. Her voice, once sharp and teasing, now sounded brittle. "You said you would leave her," she whispered one afternoon, staring at the ceiling instead of at him. "You said we would start fresh." Emeka had no defense. Start fresh. The phrase now sounded like a curse. Back at home, Amara welcomed him with the same soft smile. "You look tired," she would say. "Let me get you food." He studied her carefully these days, searching for suspicion, anger, any sign she knew something. But she didn't. Instead, he noticed things he had ignored before. The faint stretch marks on her stomach from carrying his sons. The dark circles under her eyes from sleepless nights. The way she rocked both babies at once without complaint. One evening, business at his mechanic shop collapsed in a way that felt supernatural. A longtime client accused him of dishonesty over a repair. Another refused to pay, claiming poor service. A supplier demanded immediate repayment for parts that had always been given on credit. Within 2 weeks, half his customers disappeared. The money that once flowed easily now trickled like a leaking tap. At night, he lay awake beside Amara, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly in the dark. "Let this be my freedom." The words would not leave him. He began avoiding Kyoma's calls. Then she stopped calling altogether. Rumors spread that her family blamed him for distracting her that night. Some even whispered that she had attempted to reach him urgently before the accident. Guilt dug its claws deeper. One Sunday, he stayed outside the church while Amara went in with the twins. He could not step inside. The building felt too holy for his thoughts. Through the open windows, he heard the pastor preach. Be careful what you ask for in moments of selfishness. Heaven listens. Emeka felt exposed, as though the sermon had been written for him. Later that night, he heard Amara praying again. Father, bless my husband. Protect him from temptation. Let no evil thought destroy our home. He pressed his hand against the wall separating them. Temptation. Evil thought. Destroy our home. Her prayers were the opposite of his. And suddenly he realized something devastating. If her prayers had power, then so had his. When Kyoma left for Abuja, she did not say goodbye. The last message she sent was short. Don't come again. No anger. No love. Just finality. Emeka stared at the message for a long time before deleting it. But deleting words did not erase consequences. His shop's condition worsened. He was forced to sell expensive equipment just to cover rent. Friends who once praised his business success stopped visiting. Whispers followed him in the village. Something is wrong. He used to prosper. Maybe he offended someone. They were right. He had offended heaven. At home, Amara quietly stepped into survival mode. She reopened her old sewing machine, the one that squeaked with every pedal. She cleaned it carefully, like reviving an old friend. I can help, she told him gently when he admitted money was tight. God gave us hands for a reason. She sold her wedding necklace without telling him at first. He only found out when he saw the empty jewelry box. Why would you do that? He asked, guilt slicing through him. She smiled softly. Jewelry doesn't feed children. That night, he broke. While she slept with the twins curled against her, Emeka sat outside alone under a quiet sky, no storm this time. I was wrong, he whispered into the darkness. I asked you to take her. I wanted freedom from responsibility. I let greed blind me. His voice cracked. I don't deserve this family. But please, don't punish them for my thoughts. For the first time, his prayer was not selfish. It was afraid. The next weeks did not bring miracles, but they brought small mercies. A former customer returned unexpectedly and apologized for misunderstanding a repair. Word spread slowly that Emeka was reliable again. Jobs trickled back. Meanwhile, Amara's sewing gained attention. Her designs were elegant but modest. Women admired not just her talent, but her character. She is blessed, the market women would say. Emeka felt unworthy standing beside her. One evening, while she worked late into the night, he sat across from her. Amara, he said carefully, have I ever disappointed you? She paused, needle suspended mid-air. You are human, she replied gently. We all disappoint each other sometimes. Her answer held no accusation. Only grace. And that grace felt heavier than any punishment. Life did not suddenly become perfect. But it became honest. Emeka stopped hiding his phone. Stopped staying out late. Stopped entertaining thoughts that once excited him. Instead, he woke early to help with the twins before heading to the shop. He changed diapers awkwardly at first, earning Amara's surprised laughter. You are learning, she teased. Yes, he replied quietly. I am. Business slowly stabilized. Not as wealthy as before, but steady. And strangely, that steadiness felt better than rapid success ever had. One evening, months later, Emeka received news that Kyoma had begun rehabilitation therapy. She was adjusting to life in a wheelchair. She had enrolled in an online business course. The update filled him with mixed emotions, relief, sorrow, and a deep understanding. He could not fix what had happened. But he could choose differently moving forward. That night, he sat outside watching his sons chase each other under the fading orange sky. Their laughter carried freely through the air. Amara joined him, sitting quietly beside him. He studied her face, the same gentle woman he had once seen as an obstacle. "I almost lost you," he said softly. She looked at him, confused. "But I am here." "Yes," he replied, voice thick. "You are." He didn't confess every detail, not yet. Some truths require timing and wisdom. But his repentance was real. Later, as they prepared for bed, he knelt beside her. Not in desperation. Not in secret. But openly. "Let's pray together," he said. They held hands. This time, his prayer was different. "God, thank you for not answering me when I spoke from darkness. Thank you for protecting what I was foolish enough to endanger. Teach me to honor what I have." The room was still. Peaceful. No storm. No thunder. Just the soft breathing of his wife and sons. He understood now. Freedom was never escape. Freedom was responsibility embraced. The prayer he once whispered in selfishness had returned not as destruction, but as correction. And correction, he realized, was mercy in disguise.